Good morning, everyone. It's Spirit Sessions, A View of the Light, and we're here today with a special guest, Garnet Schulhauser. And have you ever wanted to talk to your higher self and get answers to your most deep questions, your deepest, most questions? Well, Garnet Schulhauser will let us know how he can access that in his sessions using QTTH and BHQT, sorry, I'll get it right in a minute. Garnet is been on our show before, and we're welcoming him back. He's from Vancouver Island, near Victoria. He retired in 2008 from being a lawyer in Calgary. I think this was the catalyst was he met his spirit guide, Albert, and he had a lot of wonderful astral adventures together, and he decided to write about these adventures and everything he learned in his 4 books: Dancing on a Stamp, Dancing Forever with Spirit, Dance of Heavenly Bliss, and Dance of the Eternal Rapture. And he's here today to talk about what Albert thought might be another good thing for him to do was his QHHT and BHQT. Oh gosh, I got to look at it because if I don't, I'll get it wrong. BQH. One is quantum healing hypnosis technique, and the other is beyond healing, quantum healing. He's a practitioner in both of these practices. So if you guys could share this out today, the winner will win with Teresa this week. We'd love it if you could share it out, and we're going to ask Garnet to give us a little bit more about what's going on and about this practitioner and what the sessions are about and how actually a session runs. So if you could give us a little, I'd love to experience a session, but I don't know what it is. So pretend you're telling us all like you want to be potential clients and what this is all about. We'd love to hear. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Just to go back a bit, the history of what I'm practicing. QHHT stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. It was a hypnosis technique developed by Dolores Cannon over a period of about 40 years. So she did thousands of these sessions and got to the stage where everything's just sort of all nicely laid out, and it works virtually every time. Dolores Cannon, I became acquainted with her because she is the founder of my publishing company, Ozark Mountain Publishing. They published all 4 of my books. And so what happened is that when I had finished the manuscript for my 4th book, I asked my spirit guide, Albert, what should I do now? Write book 5, or what do you want me to do? And he said, put book 5 on the back burner for now, and I want you to take the QHHT course. So it sort of made sense to me because I'd met a lot of the practitioners, so I knew a lot of them. Didn't know a whole lot about the course, but anyway, took it, did level 1, did level 2, and now I'm a level 2 practitioner. So what happens in the QHHT session basically is that the practitioner will put the client into a very deep level of trance called the theta level. Okay, so that's the deepest level that you can go into. There's sort of 4 states of consciousness. There's a beta when you're wide awake. The other end is delta when you're asleep. In between, there's the alpha state, which is the lightest level of trance, which happens to all of us every number of times every day when we daydream or zone out, driving a car or reading a book or whatever. We come in and out of alpha all the time. Probably don't even realize it. The deepest level of trance is the theta, and that's where we really get the good information. And we also pass through the theta level twice a day, everyone, just before we wake up in the morning, just before we fall asleep at night, even though we don't realize that theta level is sort of where the dream images are generated. Okay, so we put our clients into the theta level, so very deep hypnotic trance, and then the induction session is sort of 2 parts. The first part is that the client is taken back to one or more past, parallel, or future lives that they've enjoyed. And these lives are chosen for the client by their higher self. And the higher self is really a soul's highest connection, alignment to the source. So it's they've described themselves as a collective. They're very advanced, higher than spirit guides, sort of way up on the ladder. And so a person's higher self knows the person better than the person knows themselves, because the higher self has been with them for every step of the way in this life and in all the other lives. So they know a whole lot more about us than we know about us, because we don't remember everything. And so armed with that knowledge, and armed with the goal of helping people, everyone on this planet, get the most out of their journeys here, out of their incarnations. So they're really very much on the client's side, and so it's a great source of information, wisdom, and they can just do a lot of things. They can help with health ailments. They can answer questions for clients. And so the higher self is sort of the person who becomes in charge of the session, and the practitioner is sort of a facilitator, sort of a connecting the client with their higher self and with their past lives. So in the past lives, the person will actually go back to one of their past lives, and it's actually like they're reliving this past life. I mean, they'll actually be there. They can become very emotional. There's a lot of clients that have, tears streaming down their cheeks as they're reliving some part of this past life, and maybe tears of joy, maybe tears of sorrow, depending on what's happening. But it's very real to them when they go there. Generally, the past life that's chosen for them has some relevance to their current life, and usually that past life may demonstrate some things that have carried over into the current life, some of their problems, their phobias, their addictions, their whatever other issues they have in their life. A lot of times those things arise from one or more past lives, and so often this visit to a past life will be revealing in that sense, where people can understand where some of their modern current issues come from. So anyway, so that's an interesting part. You never know where people are going to go. I mean, I've had a variety of different kinds of past lives. A lot of them are fairly, ordinary lives where, you're born, you get married, you have children, grandchildren, and you die of old age, kind of thing. I have not run into anyone yet who was Napoleon or Cleopatra or Henry VIII. So people shouldn't expect to find out that they've had some glamorous, famous life in the past, because most of them have not. And so, but you never know where it's going, and it's not just human lives on Earth. Past life can show up. It could be a life form from another planet. Could be an animal on Earth, because our souls we basically can incarnate anywhere we choose, any life form, whether it be Earth or another planet. And so you never know where they're going to end up. I mean, I've had some people who were, like in one case, it was sort of like an alien green blob with short, stubby appendages on a planet where they spent basically all their time scrounging for food and water, because the planet was fairly barren. And I've had another client who showed up as in her past life, she was a bird-like creature on a planet where basically all animals could fly. Clearly wasn't planet Earth. And then I've had somebody have a past life as a golden retriever on Earth. So it's very interesting. And it's really an eye-opener to see how many different sort of past lives people have enjoyed, and you never know where they're going.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, why would clients come to you for this? Is it sort of for healing, sort of like they're trying to source of question or something?
Yeah, most of the people some have health issues. A lot of people just have general questions like, what's my life purpose? Like, in other words, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Am I on the right career path? Do I have the right job? Should I find another job? What city should I live in? And then a lot of questions about relationships, like how come I don't get along with my father-in-law? How come I don't get along with my brother? And a lot of times those issues originate in some previous lives where they had some issues that weren't resolved. So people have those questions, but the past lives don't answer all of the questions. What happens after the past life is visited, then I call in the higher self and basically ask the higher self direct questions, the questions prepared by the client. So clients are asked to come with a list of questions that they want answered. And as I said, they could be anything about career path, relationships, phobias, addictions, health issues, finding abundance. A lot of people say, how can I find abundance? What do I need to do? So those are the questions that all of us had at various points in our lives. And so, but it's different for everyone because everyone has a different situation. And so after the past life regression, we then contact the higher self, and I literally ask the higher self the questions the client has given me. And the higher self actually comes in and uses the client's voice mechanism to speak. So it's like the client is channeling the higher self, with the help of the QHHT practitioner. And so it's really quite amazing because they come in very clearly and they will generally answer all the questions that are posed, except sometimes they will say, we can't give this person the answer because it's not appropriate for them to know the answer at this time. Excuse me. And so sometimes they won't, but most of the time they will. I mean, obviously some questions they won't answer. Like if you say, when am I going to die? They won't answer that because it would be too disruptive to a person's life to know that answer. Or same thing as, when is my spouse going to die? When are my children? They won't give those kinds of details because they're trying to protect the client, make sure that whatever happens in the session is not overly disturbing or causing them any sort of ongoing problems. So with that caveat in mind, they generally will answer all the questions. Sometimes very surprising answers pop out, but most clients will be comforted because they will, a lot of times they sort of they feel like they have an answer to the question, but they want confirmation. And when the higher self comes through and confirms what they were already sort of thinking, then they feel a great relief. It's like, okay, well, I was getting the right messages, I was understanding them, and now I've got confirmation from the higher self that this is the answer. Nice. This is where I should go. So anyway, that's how a session. That's basically the trance part of the session. Past life regression first, contact the higher self second, and then sometimes other entities will come through on the higher self part. Other spirits can come through, angels, whatever. You're never quite sure who's coming through, but most of the time it's the higher self, and they will answer the question. So, and all of this is recorded. So then the person after the session gets a copy of the recording, and they can listen to it over and over, which they should do, because every time you listen to the recording, you'll pick up something different because you can't absorb it all in sort of one listening. And so clients get the recording and they can listen to it over and over, and generally they all have a pretty amazing experience. They will come out of it sort of feeling refreshed. I remember having one client who came in for a session and had very little sleep the night before, I guess maybe nervous about the session, whatever, came in and said, God, I'm dead tired. I'm afraid I'm going to fall asleep when you try to hypnotize me. And I said, not to worry. Anyway, went through, hypnotized this client, had a really good session. And when she came out of the trance, she said, I feel very energized. I just, the tiredness is gone. I feel really energized, ready to go, ready to deal with the answers that I got from my higher self. So it's refreshing for most clients.
So do your clients remember some of the stuff? You're in a trance, so you're kind of there, but you're not. So do they remember parts of it themselves when they wake up from the trance? Or do you have to depend on the recording?
It varies a lot around us. Some people remember, say they remember virtually everything. Others say, no, I remember bits and pieces here and there. So it varies all over the place. The recording there is the backup, though, to make sure if you don't remember. But the parts that people do remember, it tends to be a bit like a dream. It sort of fades away after a couple of hours. And so you might come out of the trance, vividly remember your everything in your past life experience, but then within, the next day, you don't really remember as much, and you have to listen to the recording. And when you hear the parts of the past life, it all comes back to you again. So that's the main reason for the recording. So it really varies. Most people will underestimate how long they've been in trance. I always ask them, how long do you think you're in trance? Most people will really underestimate. They might say, well, 20 minutes, and it turns out it was like 2 hours. So a lot of them are surprised. I had just one example where a person actually thought that they were in trance longer than they actually were. But generally speaking, people underestimate that. And so it's varies with the people. some people just remember zero, others remember almost everything, and it doesn't really make any difference because whether you remember or not, it's all on the recording.
So you do QHHT and BQH. Can you tell us the difference between those? Is there or is it just more the way it happens?
Well, the result tends to be very similar.
And then Emily has a question after that.
Okay, in both modalities, you end up having you doing a past life experience and the contact to the higher self. The difference is how you get there. Different induction techniques between the two of them, but the main difference is that BQH can be done remotely. QHHT has to be done in person, and so the BQH is a great help to people who can't, for example, who want to have a session with me who can't travel to Victoria, or I can't travel to where they live, and so you can do a remote session. But the end results are generally pretty similar.
Emily, Emily has joined us today. Yay! Emily, our founder and director of the Akashic Academy. And I'm sorry I got a little discombobulated when I started. And she's here today and helping us out. Bex is away, but Emily's come on to talk about the magazine later on. So you have a question for Garnet.
Well, actually, it's more of a comment. Sir, you are so connected with this work and such a powerful channel for ushering in the higher self. When I shared this out, I started a watch party on my own timeline, and I was communicating a little bit with the people who were joining me there because just such a profound activation of a connection to the higher self was coming in this moment, just as you were talking. Your energy I just feel it so much in my body, and I wanted to just pause and thank you, call everyone's awareness to you are receiving a higher self activation in this moment of being here. I've been working on tuning my awareness more to the physical body so I can feel that instant feedback within my body, not just my mind and my emotions, but my physical body. I'm noticing pressure in places. So I just wanted to bring awareness. Tune into your body as you are hearing this truth spoken to you from our friend Garnet. You're receiving connections and activations to your higher self in this moment. And thank you, sir, for being here and sharing this with this community. That's what it was more of a comment than a question. So thank you.
You're quite welcome, and thank you for the very nice comments. Yeah, I mean, the higher self, one of the things that often happens in the session when I'm doing a session is that you can actually feel the energy in the room change when the higher self comes in. At least I way, and so it's quite interesting. I can always tell when the higher self comes in by the way they speak. So that the client is speaking sort of for themselves in the past life regression. When the higher self comes in, you can tell there's a difference, and so I know immediately, can feel the energy change in the room, and so you know there's really something special happening, which really makes it also worthwhile.
Really cool. It must be like it's such a difference from your old life to this new life. It's almost like a 360 or 180, I should say, that you've turned around from
That's what it is.
being so into the 9-to-5 lawyer, like by the book kind of job, to this job where you're so connected to the universe and so unconnected. Teresa just, Tennessee Wi-Fi. So connected. Tell us a little bit about your story, because I don't think a lot of people understand, and that's a really cool intro, how you got here.
Okay, well, the background is I was raised as a Roman Catholic in a very strict religious family. I went to church all the time. I was an altar boy, did all the things that a good Catholic boy would do. But when I hit my 20s and 30s, I started having a lot of questions about many of the beliefs of the Catholic Church. And I started rejecting a lot of them because they didn't make any sense to me. So then I was sort of in no man's land, casting about for a new paradigm to latch onto. And constantly when I would look in the mirror on Monday morning shaving, I would say, okay, well, who am I really? Why am I here? Who put me here? What am I supposed to be doing when I'm here? And, and then the big question, of course, what happens to me when I die, which everyone asks themselves at one point or another in their lives, sometimes many times. So it was in this sort of this belief vacuum, so to speak. I was trying to find something else to latch onto. And I was practicing law in Calgary, as Rhonda mentioned. And so it was one sunny afternoon in May of 2007. And at the time, I was a corporate lawyer, wearing a navy pinstripe suit and being every much of a stuffed shirt, buttoned down kind of guy. I was arrogant and condescending, and not just to mention a few of my many foibles. But as I went for a walk down the street this sunny afternoon, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a homeless man jumped down in front of me, and he looked like a typical homeless man with dirty clothes and scraggly beard and long unkempt hair, and he looked like he'd been sleeping on the street for weeks. And instead of going around him like I would typically do, I stood there because he had these amazing, dazzling blue eyes, and his eyes seemed to be looking deep within the depths of my soul. I felt that he knew everything about me, everything I'd ever said or done in my life, which was strange because I had never met the man before. And at the same time, he was sending me what I felt like was a gush, a wave of pure, unconditional love that was infusing my whole body with an amazing sense of peace, security, and well-being. It was like the most amazing feeling I'd ever had at that point in my life. And so I was transfixed, like a deer caught in the headlights. And I stood there for I don't know how long until he broke the spell by saying, "Why are you here?" And he disappeared into a nearby store. But when I finally collected my wits, I went into the store to try to find him because I had to find out who he was and why did he stop me. Anyway, he was not anywhere to be found in the store. I went back up the street, walked up and down for several blocks, couldn't find the guy. He had disappeared into thin air. So I resolved, as I walked back to the office, I resolved that I was going to come back the next day to find him. So next day, same street, same time, I got there hoping to spot him, walked up and down for several blocks, was about to give up hope, and then I spotted him sitting on a bench all by himself. So I went up to him and I said, "Who are you and why did you stop me the other day?" And he said, "I'm a soul just like you. I'm here to help you on your journey and answer your questions." And then my skeptic lawyer brain kicked in, and I said, "Well, how do you think you can help me? You can't even help yourself. You've been sleeping on the street for weeks and you smell like a dead fish." And he just gave me a big smile and he said, "Looks can be deceiving because you look like you're a very successful corporate lawyer with everything under control, but we both know that's just a facade." So he said, "If you want to, turn around and go back to your office and see if you can find the answers to all those questions you've been asking on all those emails waiting for you on your computer, or you can sit down and have a chat with me." So luckily, my intuition was screaming at me that I had to sit down and talk to this guy. So make a long story short, that began a conversation that went on between he and I for several months. He said his name was Albert. He was actually one of my spirit guides in disguise. And so he had come to answer my questions. And then partway through the initial conversation, he said, "And by the way, I'm not here to just satisfy your curiosity and answer your questions. I want you to write a book about what I'm telling you so others will have access to it." And I was a bit reluctant because I had never even dreamed of writing a book. But anyway, he's a very persuasive guy. And eventually I wrote my first manuscript, Dancing on a Stamp. And so that was really a sort of a telepathic communication between him and I, a question and answer, which was in that book. But he came back into my life in a different way after that. I woke up one night in my bedroom and I could see this ghost-like ethereal figure standing in the doorway of my bedroom. And when I moved closer to the bed, I could see it was my old friend Albert, except now he was in astral form. And I said, "Well, Albert, nice to see you again. What are you doing here?" He said, "I'm coming to take you on some astral adventures with me so that you could write about what you hear and see in your next books. And by the way, you're going to write at least 4. Bit of a surprise. And so then he literally grabbed my astral hand, pulled my astral body out of my physical body, and we rose up through the ceiling, and away we went on our first adventure. And so that's the background with me and Albert. And to just comment on Rhonda's comment about what a difference it was, totally different. Before I was as I said, I was an arrogant, condescending, type A personality, corporate lawyer. And after meeting Albert, things really did a 180-degree turn, and it's very much different. I had one radio host ask me last week, how do you reconcile your life as a lawyer versus your life now with Albert? And I said, well, you can't really reconcile them. They're sort of like diametrically opposed. But Albert has told me that my life as a lawyer was the preliminary setup for him coming into my life. And so that was all intended to happen. It was also intended for Albert to show up that day for me to carry on in my new form of life.
That is
So
fascinating.
that's what's with Albert. And then, yeah, and then as I mentioned, it was Albert who encouraged me to take the QHHT course, which I did. And so I sort of, I follow his guidance. I learned long ago, there's no point in fighting spirit because spirit eventually is going to win. And so now I just, okay, Albert, what do you want me to do? Give me my marching orders.
That
Emily
is
has
so
a
cool.
question.
I do. You know, it's so hard for me to be quiet. I'm trying to be really polite and quiet and sit here. This is such a great story. So interesting. Okay, so I have a question. This is a total 180. Total 180. How did those people in your life who knew you as a lawyer make that transition with you? Because I know so many people in our community right now, they're waking up to these gifts and these skills. And yes, we've always been psychic, but now we're really psychic. And for those who are a little behind the curve in our families, like, what was your experience? How did they come along with you? Or did they?
Well, my family was very supportive. Excuse me, I have a wife and two sons, and they were both very supportive of what I was doing and writing my books. And my wife is actually very spiritual herself, so she had no trouble dealing with the fact that I'm talking to my spirit guide and writing a book about it.
Bless her. Bless your soul.
It's a bit of a mixed bag with the other people, my former law partners and colleagues and clients, a mixed bag. Some of them have basically shunned me, so they don't talk to me, and I assume that they're probably thinking poor old Garnet has gone senile early. But others actually have, I've gotten some good emails from others who say, good for you to have the courage to come out of the spiritual closet and write your books and publish them. And so, a bit of a mixed bag. You know, I knew I was going to lose some people along the way, but I also knew I was going to meet and encounter a lot of really great spiritual people, new people in my life, which I have. And so overall, it's been an entirely positive experience. And the people who think I'm crazy, well, eventually one day they'll die, cross over to the spirit side, then they'll find out who was telling the truth.
Awesome. And your did it improve your family life? Like, I'm just wondering, changing this, did it improve your relationships with your sons and your grandchildren and your wife? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Because you changed?
It was very subtle. Yeah, I'm sure that I'm much easier to live with in terms of my wife than I was before when I was a lawyer. Because I was very stressed out as a lawyer, and you know what stress can do to people. And so I have a lot less stress. So I think that part is very much better. And I'm also more understanding of other people, knowing that everyone's on their own journey, and that you can't sort of judge other people because you don't know where they've been or where they're going. You know, everyone has a different journey. I mean, the other people in your life, they might have had several hundred past lives, and maybe none of them were similar to this, and so they all have their own experiences. And so I look at the people, my family, differently, and understand. I have more compassion, more forgiveness if something goes wrong, and I just understand. Okay, well, we all make mistakes, and that's also just part of a journey on Earth. And so I'm much more understanding. So I assume that makes it easier to live with me, but they haven't sort of expressed that.
Yeah. Did you find when you're dealing with your clients that when they're going in their past lives, that the people that are in their lives now are in their lives in the past as well? So they kind of move in like groups. We kind of move through life in spirit groups.
Yeah, we do move through life in through incarnations and spirit groups or soul groups, and so that's a very common element of the reincarnation. And yes, many cases that when someone's in the past life, someone who is, say, an important person, a spouse, a child, or whatever in a past life, is actually an important part of their current life. And a lot of times that will explain things in terms of, like, you know, how come I don't get along with my brother-in-law? It may turn out that the brother-in-law and the client had a past life where they had a conflict that they did not resolve, and it was sort of left hanging. And so now they're back in this life and trying again to try to resolve their differences. So that sort of revelation to the client is very helpful. It's kind of like, okay, I know I can't get along with him because I was mean to him in a previous life, and he's just reacting to that. And so that helps to resolve. It puts them on a path to say, okay, now I know what the problem is. I'm going to go and make amends and try to get along better with this person. So those things come up all the time.
Wow.
And in a lot of cases, a lot of cases, a client's spouse, they've had, in many cases, several past lives where they were spouses and lovers, not always, interchanging the sex roles, so that one time the client is the man, the time the woman, and so that sort of they're obviously have some sort of a relationship thing that they need to sort of continue on and resolve, and so that comes up very often.
Wow. Cool. That is so interesting. I can hardly wait. I told Garnet this. I'm going out to Victoria this year, so I'm really hoping I can connect up with him personally again. When I get out this time, because the wedding's not my daughter's, so I hope to be able to get and connect with him and meet him in person. But for those people who can't meet you in person, they can find you at your webpage, which is garnetschuler.com, right? And they can make an appointment with you over the internet with BQH. Gosh, I'm really dyslexic today. BQH.
Yes, that's true. I have two websites. So the one you quoted was for my books. My QHHT and BQH website is pretty much the same. Garnet Schulhauser. Add on a QHHT and then .com, and you can get right to that page. And there people can read more about QHHT and BQH and what it does. They can read testimonials from some of my clients. And there's also an easy way to book an appointment by just clicking on book an appointment button, and and that will show you all the available dates I have in the next number of months. They can just click on the date, the time, and input some information, and they've got an appointment booked. So it's quite simple.
Oh, great. And they just have to have like a setup like we have now, sort of like access to Skype or something, Zoom or something like that, and internet.
Yeah, I use Zoom, and they have to have an internet connection, and they have to have what I recommend is sort of like a headset with like earphones with a mic attached, so that we can get really clear vocals recorded. Because if people just use the microphone from the laptop, it's often not very clear. And what happens when somebody's in trance, they often speak softly. So what we want to do is make sure the mic right close there, and that they have the headphones so they can hear me, and so that we get everything recorded properly. So that's what we ask people to have, because just using a tablet or a laptop doesn't come out very well on the recording, especially when they're in a trance. So that's sort of the technical requirement. And most people have internet, and so that's not usually a problem. And then we just so in the setting, they have to be in a private room where they won't be interrupted by spouses or children or pets, because the last thing you want is to have a dog jump up on their lap when they're in the trance, because they'll take them out of the trance. So it has to be very secluded. And so, but it works well, and people have a good experience, and so it's just another means of getting sort of to the same place as you would in a QHHT, except you don't have to travel to Victoria to do it.
What I'm doing. But that's wonderful. We want to thank you so much. Emily is here to talk about the magazine, and maybe you could get Garnet to contribute one of his stories. Wouldn't that be great?
Good telepathy,
that'd be so
Rhonda.
cool.
Just give me a fist bump
Yeah.
there. That's total great
Yeah.
telepathy. I was all over that. Sir, you are actually in the company of some very esteemed writers as well. Both of these ladies who are sharing the screen with us today were contributing writers on our latest edition of the Akashic Magazine. This is our Freedom Edition, The Pursuit of Freedom. This is a free gift, a powerful resource that I'm so proud to share with our community. All you have to do to get your free copy is go to the akashicacademy.com, scroll down a little bit, you're going to see the link for our magazine right there. I'm going to invite you to not only download this, but share it with your community as well. This magazine is a work of art. This is the biggest one that we've ever published as well, 62 pages of resource material for you. These aren't just articles that we are bringing together and putting together in all one little space for you. No, this is masterminded by Bridget Sloan, who does this professionally. You can see why. She is brilliant at what she does. And she's really shifted the magazine to be a powerful resource because we bring you how-tos. We bring you articles that allow you to try other things out. We bring you articles that give you such a scope of different ways that you can show up and learn about how to get in touch with yourself, your higher self, your spirit guides. Rhonda wrote an incredible article about bird watching. Teresa writes transmissions for us. She writes beautiful, like you write a lot of different kind of articles, Teresa. This has been a beautiful place for you to bloom. I'm so excited to share this with the community. If you are a writer or you're inspired to be one, please reach out to me. We are creating this space to uplift our community. And yes, Garnet, my friend, publicly here now, I am proposing. I am proposing to you. Will you please come and contribute something to one of our magazines? It's been such a powerful experience to listen to you, and I would like to share more of your beautiful work with our community. So if you would consider that for us, we would love to have you in one of our magazines and the rest of our community too. So go to the akashicacademy.com, scroll down. You got to put in your email and then check your email. We'll send you the download.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Emily. I'd love to contribute to your magazine. Sounds very interesting.
Thank you.
Woohoo. Rhonda, I don't hear you. Do you guys hear Rhonda?
I'm here, Rhonda.
Sorry, I was coughing. On the back, you have I gave it to Garnet, obviously. We have the schedule, and that I suggest you print off at least this page. I print off the whole magazine, but you print off this page, and then you can post it on your board, and then you can see all the schedule for the whole week of every show that's on the Akashic Academy network. So if you got a minute, you can look up and join us live or watch the replay. So Teresa, you have the announcements for the end of the day.
Yes, I do, but I wanted some clarity first, Rhonda. Whoever shares it out this week the most wins with Bex Marie, right? They win a divinely guided.
They won.
Is that
they
right?
won last week. No, last week. Whoever shared out the most last week won.
Okay, so that's the one. Okay, so who shared it out the most last week was Leanne Emmons Kane. Woo! You have won a section with the amazing Bex Marie, and it will be, man, she forthcomes with so much spot-on information. You are going to love it. Whoever shares it out the most this week is going to win with me. And you never know what we're going to do. There's just so much fun to be had. So share it out, and let's let people get these good messages that we had today. Today was an interesting day, you have to admit it. And for the other announcements, yes, download your own copy of the Akashic Academy magazine, and the link will be in the comments. Look up and binge watch all the interviews with Garnet Schulhauser because there's just so much to know and learn from him. And two, stay tuned for later on. We have the Cosmic Ascension Report with Janelle Cameron. I think it's 8 o'clock Eastern or my time. I'm not sure. It's just past my bedtime. Yeah.
8 p.m.
Okay, so anyway, forget about.
Never mind about Janelle.
Janelle's got things to do. Yeah, we'll catch up to Janelle next week.
Yeah, Janelle.
Watch your replay.
Oh, that's right.
And I always encourage our
we should
hosts
put a
here,
replay
while
on
it's
for
really
her.
important to show up and to connect with our community, it's important that you feel the freedom to live your life as well. So if you miss your favorite guest because they're living their life and handling their business like Janelle Cameron this week, be sure just to send them love, strength, and support because we're all living our lives and showing up, and sometimes we just got to take that time for ourselves. So I always encourage the host. But Janelle did tell me this morning she's unpacking things from her move. She'll be back next week.
Beautiful.
Moving's not fun.
Nice. For Janelle. It's a lot of work, isn't it? It's a lot of work. And so then tomorrow at the Akashic Academy, there's the 3 shows. There's the Sarah Lillian, something about the heart. Tell me what it is
Beauty
again.
at the heart. Beauty at the heart.
Beauty at the heart. Beauty. Okay, I got it. Beauty at the heart. And then we have Kathy Homeyer's Nourish Your Multidimensional Body later on in the evening. And then way later on past that, we got Suzanne Gunderson and her tapping show. I
Yeah,
can't
Let's
remember
Tap.
either. I watched that
9
one the
p.m.
least because that's
It's
my
not that
bedtime.
late.
Let's Tap.
It's
Oh, it's way past my bedtime. I'm just gonna shrivel up. No, I catch it sometimes. It's fun. So that's all I can think of. Can you think of any more announcements? We're sending love to Bex to feel better, and everybody. What else?
That's
Sending
not
light love to
anything else you'd
California and
like to
tell them to
say.
stop shaking so much.
Yeah. 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 Have you felt any earthquakes up in Vancouver Island, Garnet?
No, haven't felt anything,
No. Okay.
thankfully.
Good. 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 Let's keep it that way. Okay. So we hope to see you again on our show, and we hope to see you in person this fall. So thank you
Love you,
all.
Renee.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Blessings.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.